to the second episode of Freedom Sessions. My name is Milan Sekulic. I'm joined by Tess Henry, who's joining us from lovely Colorado, and Kim Sepala, I hope I said it right, who's joining us from Malta. She will be joining us on the show from now on. And yeah, I'll just hand it over to you, Kim.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to join Tess and Milan. So I thought it would be very interesting to share a little bit about our everyday lives, like what we do, how we spend our time during the day, and something personal. So Milan, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Currently, I'm studying psychology. I'm in my second year. I live together with my partner Maureen, and so basically I'm like the day job thingy is like a full-time student. Um, but recently I'm kind of like discovering that this isn't really my passion, and I'm actually starting to pursue um, my passion a lot more, which all has to do with um, stepping into my own enlightenment and kind of releasing all the old stories, embracing my own mastery, and just like truly allowing my passion to come up first of all, and then kind of like allowing that to guide me versus the old fear stories of the mind and the old programming and all the things I should do. And so that's like a new development for me, and but that's kind of how 2015 started, and yeah. And you, Tess?
All right. Um, so I'm living in the Denver, Colorado area currently, and during the day I go to work and assume that role most of my day, Monday through Friday. I have chosen to re-enter the working world after a year off and kind of traveling the world a bit, very consciously, not tied down to the system or feeling like I have to do it to survive, but choosing something that really felt passionate. I had a very clear dream about autistic children, so which I believe are the new energy children who are coming in with extremely fine-tuned senses, heightened abilities. They're very authentic and very real, and they do not conform to expectation of anyone except what they want to do. So after being a school teacher for a while, I decided to work directly with these kids. So I'm a therapist now, and I work one-on-one. So I work with one child in a room, and we kind of do a couple hours together of therapy, of helping them integrate to this planet, and then doing the regular academic qualifications as well. But I have found that for me, it helps me balance the journey of realization, which is kind of always going on in the background. That is my passion. Going to work is kind of a way of applying it, of stepping out into the world again. And with what I have chosen with these children, they keep me balanced in my center more than anything I know, because they read your energy and they will, they will just react to however you are feeling. If you're not in your balance, it's a very quick indicator. They could be tantruming or pushing you or anything. And so you have to always be strong in your own energy. And they have helped show me how to be real and authentic and use my voice and not care what other people think and really voice what I want to do, because that's what they do all the time. They're extremely sensitive, just like I was growing up, but they are even more so. And so it's been a fun playground. It's definitely not something I think I will choose to do forever. I already feel it shifting a bit, because working a full-time job definitely doesn't leave as much time as one would desire to do more creative aspirations. So I do
Yes.
feel that coming with 2015. I feel a strong surge of energy to create. And that's part of why I'm choosing this show, pure freedom of creation and expressing your soul no matter what is going on in your daily physical life or what your outside circumstances are. It's more about coming back to your inner soul every single night or whenever your free time is. Even for me, I go out to lunch I get a half an hour for lunch, but I make the most of it and I go sit by a stream on some rocks and I kind of breathe with my soul in the sun every day. Same at night. So it's about kind of choosing awareness no matter where you're at for me. And that's what I'm doing with this job. And soon I think it'll shift and evolve into other things. And I'm just not attached to needing to know when that's going to happen or how or why. I'm just kind of sitting with myself and knowing right now it feels good. And maybe when it doesn't, things will shift. But that's for me. So kind of typical 30 to 40 hour work week and walking through my own awareness and realization. So that's me.
It's beautiful.
Like a double shift almost.
Yeah. The double shift.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm in a similar situation to Milan in that I'm also studying psychology at the moment. And it's very frustrating because the approach is, I'm very interested in the subject, but the way it is taught and the whole academic structure, it's so so cognitive, so left-brained, very very mental, and there is like no space for creativity, which is the thing that bothers me maybe most about it. But so this is what I have chosen, and I'm now doing that until June when I graduate from this degree. And yeah, I've just sort of left it open to what happens after that. So I haven't made any decisions yet whether to continue studying or go on a completely different path. Yeah, I used to always have this thought that I need to find my place in the world. So I tried so many different things. Is this my place? Or maybe I fit better into this structure. And so at time after time, I was disappointed because I just didn't fit into any of these different courses. I tried different courses at university, and then I didn't finish them because they didn't feel right. And it took me such a long time to realize that, it's not about finding your place in the world, but about creating the reality that you need and about creating a life that fits you. That actually you are the center of your life and you have to bring into your life whatever supports who you are. This is something that has, only recently come into my awareness, and so it shifts everything. And now it's not so much anymore about what I'm doing, but how I do it, like Tess was talking about, with the most ease and grace.
Yeah. I can relate very much to what Kim is sharing, because I too found it very frustrating to operate in that academic world, because the way things are set up right now, it's so very limited. Like all research, for instance, has to be based on previous research, and then that in itself is like a huge limitation, because if you have like an original idea, but there's no connection with the previous research, you don't really have the freedom to pursue it like fully. And then that's this thing that's called, it's like it needs to be peer-reviewed and published in journals. And this is like a huge limitation because like a lot of people who are like invested in this fields, they've built like a whole career, like maybe on one concept, maybe like 40 years they've been teaching the same class and writing like, you know, articles about a certain topic and a certain perspective. But what if there's like a new perspective and it doesn't go along with the old ones? You know, the leading experts, they will not approve your research. So there's so many inherent limitations built into it. And then also like psychology, the reason I chose to do that study, because I'm passionate about consciousness, right? And we all know that consciousness goes beyond the mind. But science, like in its modern understanding, at least in the field of psychology, I think quantum physics is making some breakthroughs, but they seem to think that consciousness is something that is generated by the mind. You know,
Mhm.
that they have this material worldview, and I found it so incredibly frustrating. And this people are like conditioned into it. I was really disappointed by my fellow students. You know, maybe most of them are a bit younger than I am. You know, so they're like all 18, 19 when they start that study, and they just basically like accept everything that's offered, everything that's taught by the professors or that's in the books, and they hardly question anything. Like I've always learned to question everything, and I think on this path, with one point, we learned to use our discernment and trust our own feelings. So I became incredibly frustrated with what they were teaching me. I didn't agree with a lot what they were teaching me. So, you know, at the beginning of this year, I kind of had like a breakthrough, and um, I kind of like realized where I was still suppressing myself, where I was still fighting myself, where I was um, kind of like chickening out and not following my true passion, but kind of just going like with the old conditioning, the old programming, because it's like safe, it's familiar, you
Mm.
know, it's easy. It doesn't make me happy, it doesn't make me fulfilled, but it's like familiar. I know what tomorrow will bring. You know, it's safety, it's stability. And then I kind of realized like the thing that I was fighting most is actually my own passion, allowing my own passion to come up. And when I allowed my passion to come up, I realized I cannot continue in this way, you know,
Mhm.
because it's just making me so unhappy. And that's like when inspiration for new things started to come. I started writing a book, I created a website, I decided, oh, I'm going to do sessions with people. So for me, like everything is about allowing this passion to come up and having the balls or have the courage to actually pursue it and not let my fears and my old programming stop me. And that's like easier said than done, because it means like all these fears will come up one by one, you know, and you kind of have to like, you have to like confront them. You have to like integrate them, accept them, embrace them. And that's been really challenging. So for me, like, and it's crazy how like 2014 was like, you know, it was the old way, and then 2015 it was just like such a change, and I just couldn't physically put myself to do certain things anymore. I just like, it felt unloving or even abusive to put myself through some of the old regimens of studying and writing reports, and you know, like even going to class, and I was just like, oh, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't. It feels abusive. So that's when I really had to make a choice. It's like, okay, you know, what am I gonna do here? Because it was like I was with one foot in the old world and with
Mhm.
one foot in the new world, right? And it wasn't working because like I was like paralyzed in the middle. You know, my fears were kind of like keeping me in this little box, and I realized I can't stay in this state. I can't. You know, a lot of um, fear came up, a lot of guilt came up, a lot of shame came up. You know, is it like okay for me to pursue my passion? You know, all these things came up. So yeah, 2015 has been a very, very interesting year so far, and it's just the beginning.
Mm. Yeah, I also find this having these two separate worlds. It's like this one spiritual self and then another
Mhm.
kind of human aspect of myself that goes to university. And having these two separate lives, it doesn't work anymore. You know, I have to, you know, just integrate it all into one. Um, and what happens when I do that is I feel that some things are just not in integrity with who I am. Like. studying loads and loads of facts that I'm never going to use in the future is
Yeah.
one of those things, you know, it just causes me pain to do that. So
Yes.
why should I?
Mm.
Mm.
I think there are many, many people in the world going through similar circumstances, sort of starting to awaken, finding themselves in an old choice,
Yeah.
or and now feeling like their new self might not be able to tolerate that anymore, and then how to somehow still make it a safe place for yourself, or how to
Yeah.
still, like you were saying, Kim, choose to let all of yourself out no matter where you are, has sort of been what I've been observing in myself. Am I courageous enough to let my true soul out, like firing through my eyes, even when I go to work with very unconscious people, or when I go to the grocery store? Or is it just a pattern of mine to kind of close down in those circumstances that don't really fire up my soul, and just kind of hide and go through the day? Because I've found, like, wow, if I choose freedom and joy for myself, no matter where I am, even if it's a hard day at work, the synchronicity starts happening instantly in the day. Things just start magically occurring. That, it's unexplainable. And it's kind of balancing that place of knowing you want change in your life, but being loving enough to say, well, maybe this is serving me somehow. Maybe I can take this situation and be as loving as I can and still feel the depths of my soul no matter where I am, which to me is true freedom. It doesn't matter if you can just say, well, I shouldn't be studying, I shouldn't have a job, I should just be free from everything and have money flowing in constantly. It's like, well,
Yeah.
there's that mind voice of should or shouldn't, or do this or do that. And
Yeah.
there is a potential to choose absolute joy and freedom no matter what you're in, while you are transitioning
Yes.
into what you really want
Yeah.
to create.
Yeah.
So it's that balance. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what happens with most people is like they find themselves in a situation that's uncomfortable. They find themselves in a job or
Mm-hmm.
a study or even in like a life situation. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a certain job where they are unhappy, and they feel as if they are stuck. That's the
Mm-hmm.
belief. In the end, it's never really true because we can always make a new choice. But it can be such a pervasive belief, especially if we've been conditioned this way. Like you have certain obligations, you have responsibilities, you
Mm-hmm.
know, maybe you have children or a partner, or maybe you have like a house that you bought and you need to pay, the rent or the how do you call that when like when you bought the house and you need to make the
The
monthly,
mortgage.
yeah, the mortgage,
Mortgage.
so you can feel stuck. And if people like really feel stuck and they're unhappy, like one of the coping mechanisms that happens is like they start to shut down their feelings. So when you start to shut down your feelings, it makes it copable. You can in a way deal with the situation because you're numbing yourself. And that then that's usually where addictions come in. So it can be anything. It can be like smoking or alcohol, it can be food, it can be like sex, it can be like anything, but like always like based on numbing yourself. So I agree like 100% with what you say, Tess. Like it doesn't matter like in which situation you are, even if you're unhappy. Like the first steps you can always take is allow more of your true self to come in.
Mm-hmm.
It's starting by opening your feelings once again, making that connection with yourself, changing your resonance,
Mm-hmm.
and always starting within. Because like what you resonate outwards, is in a way what you will attract, and that will change your situation. So even if you're like in a job that you do not love, or you
Mm-hmm.
feel like, well, right now it's serving me, but I don't feel like next year or in 2 years I will still be doing it, because it's not my ultimate passion. But then when you can allow that true soul essence of yourself, that passion deep from within, to come forth and be with you in those moments, that in itself will start to catalyze things in your life that eventually will also change the outside situation. So
Right.
I think what you said is like very important, and I think it's also very important for people to hear who are like in those situations. And it doesn't mean you have to immediately change everything, because that can be very unloving. Because let's say, if you if you have it's like, well, I'm like in this job that I don't like, so maybe I'm quit it. But now you have anxiety about how you're going to pay your rent.
Hmm.
Maybe you weren't ready to quit your job, because maybe it was coming from a forceful voice from your mind, and it wasn't coming from soul passion. So this like then you just create like more suffering for yourself. So I think connecting with that true essence and starting to allow that's so key for all of us, for everybody, no matter in which situation you are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, realizing the safe space that you may have created, which your perspective may not be able to see how beautiful and perfect it is for you. So I was going
Yes.
to ask either of you, like, do you feel like you, in a way, even though you're going to university, there's another
Yes.
part of you that's just so joyous to be in that place, like
Yeah.
having more time? Like, what would you think, Kim? Would you
Definitely.
expand on maybe how you can have a perspective of, yes, I'm going to university and I don't like the studying, but look at this other part.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, there's definitely truth to that, that this situation is serving me so perfectly at the moment. Um, because I know myself how I don't do well in work in normal jobs, so to
Mm.
speak, where I have to do things in a specific way and specific time frame. And compared to that, studying has so much freedom. You can do the studying when you want and where you want, and it actually does have a lot of freedom to it. And I do think that the change happens, in the moment, and you can change today just by choosing that. Okay, I'm going to do this studying, but I will do it with the most joy. So maybe I will go to a beautiful place to read my books, or have a nice cup of coffee, or just small details that really make me, joyful. And I think, when you start making these very small steps towards enjoying whatever you're doing, either you start loving what you do, or the things just start very natural to shift.
Mhm.
So,
Hmm.
yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's exactly true.
Mm.
It's like you can choose broadly, grand choices. I choose ease and grace and joy and clarity in my life, um, and kind of let that go. And then in the everyday life, you can choose to change your pattern and create joy, like you're saying, amongst a situation that may feel like, okay, this may not serve me much longer in my life, but while I'm here, I'm going to appreciate it because by now I know how energy works. It's going to serve what I'm putting out there. So I could sit here and be frustrated and let the mind beat me up with, why am I here? Why am I in a job at this point? And, why am I this or that? You haven't done it good enough. Once again, you're not good enough. And it's like, oh my gosh, if you simply shift your perspective and allow yourself to go turn right instead of left on the walk to work and get a fancy coffee and sit in the park for 10 minutes before you walk in, or just breathe with yourself, like you're saying, the simplest choice to say, well, I'm going to do this in joy. If I'm going to be here, I'm going to choose the way I'm going to react with this.
Mm.
I'm not going to let the mind take over. I'm not going to let victim take over, or that I'm stuck in a situation. It's just about awareness, like being so aware of every moment of your day and how
Yeah.
you're choosing to respond. That's beautiful. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that example for people who, are in the exact same situation.
Yeah.
Maybe have a very hard circumstance in their life, but how can we shift it?
Yes.
Look at it differently.
Yeah, I agree like 100% with that. That's such a beautiful example, and it applies to like everything in your life. Perspective is so
Mm-hmm.
key. Perspective is so powerful. Once you realize that, because like it is your perspective that determines your experience.
Uh-huh.
So once you like truly grasp that, it's like, oh, I'm feeling bad right now because I'm looking at it in a certain way. And if I
Mm-hmm.
want to stop feeling bad about it, what needs to happen is I need to change how I look at it. I need to change my perspective. I need to look at it from a different angle.
Right.
And that's such a key understanding, and it applies literally to everything in your life. And it's so powerful because for me, that means exercising your free will. Free will, you might not be like 100% in control about all the circumstances in your life or the things that happen to you, right? But the thing that you always, without exception, if you're aware of it or not, like the thing that you're always like in full control of is your perspective. So if you don't like something, if you don't like a certain experience, you can always shift your perspective. You can shift the angle from which you look at something. And that, will not only change how you experience that circumstance, in the end, the way this reality works, it will change the circumstance itself. Because we will have a different resonance. And
Mm-hmm.
it's our resonance that reflected back to us. It's what draws certain circumstances, experiences, people, jobs. It's our resonance that we send out that attracts all these things into our life. So when we take ownership, you use the word ownership, that's such a powerful thing. For me, that's like exercising your mastery. A
Mm-hmm.
master takes ownership and responsibility for his or her life, you know and something that I've been like very keenly aware of in my journey, because you asked like, do you see like positive sides? I said like,
Right.
yeah. And I'm like, yeah, 100%. Like the moment I started studying, it was such a liberation. I came from this job that I hated. I got very little money. I was not passionate about it. I felt exploited. I felt like a slave in the matrix. That's how I felt. So when I got this opportunity to study, all of a sudden I had all this time for myself, and that's what I craved most. I could go through these shifts, like in a very gentle way, with a lot of time and space for myself, a lot of time and space for how I'm gonna like organize my day. And there's a much more organic flow than, oh, okay, you have to be here at 9 and you can leave at 5, and at 12 you can have like a half-hour break. It's like, no, you know, if I want, I go to class. If I don't, I don't. It's just so much more freedom. So it felt like such a soul creation, and it felt very, very liberating. And the other point that I wanted to make is like, many times when we find ourselves unhappy or like unfulfilled or like miserable or depressed or whatever, you know it really helps if you start like observing your thoughts. Observe your current perspective, because it's your current perspective that's making you unhappy. So when you like start to become aware of that, because you cannot change it if you're not aware of it, right? That's always the first step. So start observing it. And then something I've learned is like, um, I've noticed that the mind itself and thoughts itself often are very judgmental, very harsh. You should do this, you should do that, that's not good, that, blah blah blah. So this very unloving voice, and I think that applies for most people. So one thing I've learned in this journey is to like go beyond the mind, go to this deeper truth of who I am, to my essence, to my soul, to my I am. you know I, by practicing this conscious breath and going into a feeling state, and that shifts everything, because there's no harsh voices there. you
Mm-hmm.
know that's a place of unconditional acceptance, and that will shift the experience dramatically. you know
Yeah. I've been through a lot of outside shifts in the last few years. Like I was thinking about it, and I've lived in at least 5 different places, and I've had jobs turn over and leave them and come back to them, and so it's easy for the mind to say, well, what are you doing? This is not security. Why do you have a business degree and an education degree and all these things, and you're just kind of floating around and feeling yourself in the moment? And now I find myself back in this job, like I was saying, for some months now, probably since last April. And so it's funny, I have almost the opposite situation as both of you. Like my time has been restricted by my choice. I'm choosing to work 30 to 40 hours. And then it's saying, well, how is this serving me though? Because it is.
yeah.
It is. Like I'm very financially stable. I don't worry about money at all. I get to go and play with 3-year-old children, literally dress up as animals and crawl around and sing and dance
Yeah.
and yeah, somehow making it loving instead of letting that really critical voice take over. Like, what are you doing giving all of your hours to this? Well, that does no good in the end, except, that horrible feeling you get. And once you recognize that feeling, it's like, wow, this is not my soul. My soul would never talk to me like this,
Yes.
ever.
Yeah.
First of all, my soul is so broad, it doesn't care what I'm doing as long as I bring my presence to what I'm doing and my joy to what I'm doing. Like you said, then the energy just will unfold and start connecting and bringing in resonances similar to yours.
Yes.
And I've had to look at my situation, yeah, the same, change the perspective. Instead of feeling like a slave to my work, wow, all of my clients have kind of shifted into being very balanced clients. And I have made specific choices knowing that I'm choosing to go into the working world. I asked for a pretty significant raise because I know I'm really good at what I do. And my boss at first was, what? But then obviously she wanted to keep me. And then I started asking for things I wanted. Like, I'm not willing to drive more than 30 minutes to a client. And then my whole working day started shifting into being a very loving thing where even though I'm gone a lot of hours, I'm still somewhat choosing what I'm creating within it. So you always have a choice and a perspective and a way to be loving to yourself, no matter what you're doing, and just trusting that you're perfect exactly where you are.
Yes.
And that anything that's telling you that you need a different circumstance right now to be happy or to be more awakened is just an illusion. And it takes a while to get there, a lot of back and forth, but sooner or later you will get so tired and exhausted of battling the voices that you'll just give in to kind of just finding your bliss wherever you are.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say just taking a long look at shifting like multiple perspectives of what you're doing and where you are safe and where you do feel loved and how this is serving you in a good way. And if you don't like something, it's pretty hard, but once you write the letter, ask for it to change. And you'd be surprised how people react to that. Like they will be willing to accommodate you if you are very passionate and love what you're asking and what you're doing.
And if you're very clear about what you want and what you need.
Right. Yeah. Be very clear. And don't listen to the voice that says, well, I could never ask for that. They would never pay me that. I'm not worth that. I'm not, no. This is what I'm worth. I would like this. I will not drive this, or I will not do this. And so somehow my job has shifted constantly as my awareness shifts the last 8 months. It's kind of fun to observe that from a distance. And so now, yeah, for me, it's just about finding a way to bring in my creativity to create a balance so that I have less working hours, more creativity. But somehow I'm trusting it will unfold and I don't have to worry about it. Just setting aside time, I think, is important for what you do love. And it doesn't have to cost money. It could be taking out a pencil and a piece of paper, drawing a picture, writing something down on your phone in the notes if you get inspiration, going for a walk in nature. Dancing doesn't cost any money. I do that every night almost. Turn on my music and just let myself go. Do I have time to take a specific class every night? No, not with my schedule, but I arrange my own class in my bedroom, which is kind of fun. So yeah, really, really being clear with what you want and am I choosing to create time for myself to bring in more joy while I'm doing this other thing that may not always feel the best. Yeah. What do you guys do? Do you have any ways that you help kind of rebalance your soul or, shift away from the education world and come back to yourself? Just fun little daily.
Sure. Well, I also love to dance just by myself with some music or to
Everyone should try it, yes. Nice.
read or to listen to some channels that I really resonate
Yeah. But these days, I kind of spend more like just following my feeling. So I don't necessarily need to rebalance that much anymore, in the sense of from like um, like I used to in the past. It's like it's shifted. I've kind of like really allowed myself the freedom to go more with my feelings. Um, and just allow myself the experience, like each time that mind voice comes, it's like, oh, you can't do that, you have to do this, and blah blah blah. I'm like, you know what, whatever. The mind
Yes.
voice can say whatever it wants. It can say whatever it wants. That's cool, but I don't necessarily have to listen to it. You know what I mean? Like I used to in the past, because I found out that it would make me very miserable,
Mm.
unhappy. It would drain my energies. I wouldn't really live. I would like survive. So there's like a big difference. So for me, it's about truly giving myself permission to do whatever I feel in the moment. And
Mm.
what I've noticed is that my energy levels are much more stable, so I don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to rebalance myself. I'm much more balanced all the time. And also, like in regards to something you said, Tess, like if you want to create change in your life, I think one thing that's so important is to first accept what
Hmm.
is there and to acknowledge the perfection of your creation in the now
Yes.
moment. Because the mind will tell you, well, you should do this, or that's not a good job for us, or I don't get
Hmm.
enough money, or it will tell you like a thousand things, right? But none of them will feel very well. None of them will feel good. It's not really interested like in your happiness or feeling you good. It's quite the opposite. And if we listen to this unloving voice, it will just drain us of our energy and it will make us so miserable. But that's how we've been conditioned to, and that's like the norm. That's the standard in this world. That's
Hmm.
what our parents are doing. That's what our neighbors are doing. That's what everybody around us is doing, and that's like normal. So like all this suffering, all this,
Hmm.
not just following your heart and your passion, but just like, living up to standards that were set by others.
Hmm. Surviving.
Yeah, truly surviving. And there's this idea, if we release that and if we start following our heart, that we'll get in trouble in some way. Then there's like this little voice, yeah, but how are you gonna pay your rent, or how are you gonna pay your mortgage? How are you gonna do groceries? And there's like, oh, and so this lack of trust that our love for ourselves, this passion, this joy, you know, there's this idea that it cannot sustain us. That if we follow this inner feeling, if we follow our heart, if I say follow our heart, everybody understands that. Everybody can relate to following your heart. There's this idea, this fear. It's like, yeah, but if I truly follow my heart, everybody told me, I will get in trouble, and my parents told me I would fail, and my friends told me like, well, you don't do it, just do this. But that's what everybody else is doing. But look at them. Are they happy? No, they're freaking miserable. Every single one of them. That's why there's such a high prevalence of all these mind drugs. Like these antidepressiva and stuff. Because people like they just want to numb their feelings because they're not feeling happy. Because nobody encouraged them to trust their feelings. Nobody encouraged them to follow their hearts. And so for me, like what happened this year, and it's been such a radical shift. I basically gave myself permission. You know, we're gonna follow this, and we're gonna be ruthless in our pursuit. We're not gonna compromise whatsoever. We're gonna go for this 100%. And that was
Hmm.
scary. That brought up
Hmm.
all my fears. It brought up fears of survival. It brought up fears of confrontation. It's like, oh, but how am I gonna explain this to my parents? They'll probably think I'm crazy if I tell them that I'm gonna speak from my passion. If I tell them I'm gonna write a book. If I tell them I'm gonna teach people about compassion and breathe with them. It's like, really, you're gonna make a career out of that? But that's my feeling, and I would compromise if I would give in to the fears. I've been down that road, and it's brought me to the point where I was so depressed that I didn't want to be on this planet anymore, you know. And I'm like, well, I only have one life. This is my life, and I don't want to waste any more time than I already did living a passionless life where I compromise and do what I should do because everybody else around me is doing that and they're telling me I should do the same. I'm like, no, fuck it. I'm done with that. I'm gonna follow my heart. And truly, it's been such a radical change. And I don't say it's like easy, because it will bring up fears, it will bring up resistance, you know. But whatever, that's okay. It's part of the process. It's part of the unfolding. Just, keep walking. Just keep walking. And I'm really curious, like, because this is a new journey. So I think, like, as we are doing this show, people will be able to witness our journey, right? So for me, it just kind of feels like I've really stepped into it at the beginning of this year, and let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. We'll see. But this is my feeling, and I can no longer compromise. So yeah, that's how I deal with it these days.
There's like a very fine balance between being authentic with yourself about your feelings and choosing not to compromise your own happiness. But then at the same time, we're saying to be grateful for what we have and to shift our perspective.
Yeah.
So those are kind of two spiritual schools of thought, that have, they seem very different. One is I don't make any compromise, and the other school of thought is I just shift my perspective. It doesn't matter what situation I'm in, because I'm in control of my own thoughts and emotions. But I think those are just like two directions that we can kind of use simultaneously to get to the place of joy.
Yeah. And it's also about, I'm sorry, but I just have to add to that. It's like, it's also about feeling for yourself in the moment. What's the most loving choice?
Yes.
Right? So the most loving choice in any given situation can be to change your perspective, right? And deal with the situation in that way. That can truly be the most loving thing you can do. And you can discern that, you can feel that, you can trust your feelings. Or it can be, and the same situation for a different person, it can be like to not compromise, to be, so that's you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have, it's not like it's going against each other. So it's about listening to the wisdom of your heart, because in your feelings, you know, it's like our feelings that are like guiding us. And sometimes it can be very loving to be uncompromising. Like a year ago, I would not have been ready for that. I would have uh, triggered such anxiety and fear that it would totally paralyze me. I would not have been ready to move through that. At this phase in my journey, different phase, I am ready to move through that. But like in both situations, I like listening to the feelings. So I don't feel like they're like opposites. You know what I mean? It's just like um, yeah, mm, different choices, like in different moments. I think the most important thing is that we like listen to that inner guidance, that inner feeling, that inner knowingness, and allow ourselves to trust that.
Yeah, but I understand what you were saying, Kim, because it can sound very contradictory at times, you know. Um, so somehow always accepting that your soul is perfect where it is, you are perfect where you are, exactly where you are, exactly how you are, whatever you've done in your life, starting there and then making a big choice of maybe how you want to shift your life. And trying to balance that acceptance of where you are and changing your perspective with also taking some action and saying, but I will not sit here and be victim to my situation and just say, well, I guess it's serving me. So then it's easy to just go back into your pattern for another 6 months. Like, well, just wait for something to happen. So there's this allowing of, yes, that can happen, but you also have to be proactive. You have to take action. You have to say, how am I going to choose to act today? How much experience do I want to dance with today? How much of my soul do I want to bring out today? And really be conscious that you're doing that along with accepting where you are. Because I think that's about not compromising. It's not letting anything outside of you take away the purity of who you are, wherever you are. but knowing you are going to have to, choose change, choose to do things differently. Like I said earlier, choose to go to work in a different way, or go to school in a different way, or study in a new place. Making choices at that phase of your life will definitely help shift the pattern, change the way you're doing things, but accept that exactly where you are is okay. It's okay. And you don't have to think that you did something wrong because you're not exactly happy with right where you are right now. Yeah. It's a lot to take in.
Compassion for self. A lot of
Yeah.
compassion to accept where you are and to be honest with yourself about how happy you are with the situation and how willing you are to change. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And always with compassion would be like, Milan, what you're saying, this going to your feeling space, the center of you, and just start to recognize, even if you recognize it 24 hours later, like, wow, that day felt really bad. Like all those voices in my head were really nasty and mean and telling me all these things that I should do differently. Or sooner or later, you're going to start catching it within 5 minutes, within 1 minute, exactly when it happens in the moment. And then you can catch that voice and breathe and say, God, I have so much love for myself. I choose not to let that voice have any power over me anymore. I've even been laughing at it. Like that has helped me because I haven't noticed that it ever completely dissipates. I don't walk around like, la, I'm so aware and everything's wonderful and I never have a bad voice. They definitely still come, even with my awareness. But I kind of laugh at it like, nice try. You tried that last week and it's not going to work. Or you just got to be okay with everything happening to you, even if it feels like, woof, a wave of hardship comes or a challenge comes. Like, even that's okay. Like, not battling anything anymore and choosing to love yourself and have so much compassion that you can allow any state of being and come back to who you are with simple breathing. Owning that your soul would never feel like that. It just wouldn't. So therefore, that voice has to be the mind. And breathe yourself back into love. Put on a song, do whatever you need to do. Go for a walk. Take a bath. I love salt baths. Lots of water helps me. So yeah, if either of you have something to add, like what you do to bring yourself back to compassion in a time of, where we all go through, a big shift comes in or a wave of intensity. What does your compassion look like? What would you do?
Like Milan said, it's so much about connecting to my feelings, about just being aware, basically, about how do I feel? How did I feel in that situation? What was it that, triggered me? And just the more I allow this awareness and honesty, whenever I'm honest with myself, I know what I need, I know what I want, what I desire, I know what those fears are that are still, bothering me. And it's just about kind of making this decision, okay, I'm not ready to be honest. And whatever, skeletons may come out of the closet, I'm open to, see myself. And when I give this permission to me, then suddenly things become so much simpler, so clear. And, then, yeah, it can take a lot of practice to become more compassionate and more soft with ourselves, And it happens in steps. Slowly we become a little bit more allowing and soft.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes like a certain amount of courage. It takes a certain willingness to be able to look at yourself truthfully, you know?
Mhm.
Um, there's like a tendency to like ignore the things that we find uncomfortable. There's like a tendency
Mhm.
to like suppress, fight, or hide these feelings rather than face them,
Mhm.
you know? And yet again, this seems to be almost like a symptom of our times where people in general aren't taught from a very young age how to deal with their feelings, and in fact they learn to suppress it. He's like, oh yeah, big boys don't cry. Well, what are they teaching you?
Mhm.
It's like not okay to express your feelings, you need to suppress them. So what you are feeling is not okay. So that's something that we've been taught from a very young age. We've like learned to suppress what we feel, and then on the other hand, we're conditioned to start to live in our minds, in our brains. It starts at a very young age. We learn how to read and write. We go to school. Creativity is like, less and less space for creativity. No, we have to do math. We have to do science. We have to do
Mhm.
history. We have to do all this left brain stuff. So we become left brain people. You know, and um, yet again, there's this disconnect from your feelings. So what if you've like suppressed your feelings your entire life? You've gone an entire lifetime with suppressing your feelings. Well, the moment you open up again, you're gonna feel some stuff that doesn't feel pleasant. It's not new, but it was there all the time. You just didn't feel it. So it's like a culmination, like a build-up of many, many years, many, many experiences, like of suppressed emotions, suppressed feelings. So the moment you first start opening up, well, that's a kind of a scary proposition because all of a sudden you have to deal with all these emotions, all these feelings, and it's like a tsunami. It's like a wave coming all over you, and you kind of have to go through that phase till things settle down a bit again. So just opening up to that takes courage. It truly does, and that's I think like the main reason why not a lot of people uh, take that step or do it. You know, um, yeah,
Mm. Yeah, I think as I'm remembering back to when I started to awaken and all of that turmoil that would come in, or really having to reflect and take time to think back to why did I do that? Or if this situation didn't feel good, or this encounter with this person, why didn't it? And owning kind of that you're not willing anymore to take energy from other people or be a victim of energy or any of those roles. Like yeah, it takes a lot of courage to say, I'm going to sustain myself in my own sovereignty, in my own energy field. I don't need anything from anyone else to
yeah.
be in this space. And so I'm not going to look around trying to, yeah,
Well, that's
pick a
the
bite from someone or take energy from someone and just, oh, yeah, lots and lots of courage
that's the other
to
thing.
reflect constantly. Yeah, reflecting upon each situation that brought you some turmoil
Hmm,
and allowing yourself time to do that.
yeah.
Just observing your reaction. Why did you do that? Were you really looking to get a rise out of someone? Whatever the situation may be, just step back and look at it. Why you're doing things a certain way. As you keep opening, it'll happen more often
Yeah,
in the moment.
yeah, and you said like victim, right? And that's a very interesting word to me, because victim implies that you're powerless, that you're like basically, like a victim of your circumstances. It means you have
Right.
no influence whatsoever, and that's what we're taught. Because
That's what I was
no,
going to say. Yeah, we
no,
are raised with that,
yeah,
from an early age. That,
yeah, because
yeah,
nobody teaches you that you're literally the creator of your reality,
yeah,
right? That's a rather
a
alien.
foreign concept.
Yeah,
Yes.
like it's like an alien concept, the mass consciousness. But that
Hmm.
that again takes courage because it's easy when you don't have to take ownership. It's easy when you don't have to take responsibility, especially if like we're wounded in that area. We will be wounded in the sense when, for instance, the word responsibility. Let's say it has been used against you by your parents. Maybe your mother told you, your father told you, "Oh, you're not responsible. You need to take responsibility," and blah blah blah. So then responsibility becomes a bad word. This concept of responsibility doesn't feel good. So we kind of like shun responsibility because of our upbringing or our childhood or whatever. But like, yet again, changing perspective. So what if responsibility means freedom? What if taking ownership of your life means freedom? What if taking responsibility means mastery? What if responsibility means you're no longer a victim,
Mm-hmm.
but a creator? Then it's like changing your perspective in regards to responsibility. So it's the same word, but now it has a different meaning. It has a different
Right.
resonance. It has a different way of how you apply it in your life. So when we liberate, some of these concepts, and responsibility can be something that empowers us versus that disempowers us, we can start to apply it in a very different way. It's like, oh, wait a minute. What if this is true? Let's play with this idea. Let's say that I am the creator of my reality. Let's say that I do have influence and that I can change things simply by changing my perspective, and with that, my resonance. I will start to attract different situations, different people, different experiences, different emotions, different thoughts. So in a very playful way, we can start to change our reality.
Mm-hmm.
So you might, why aren't more people doing this? Well, they don't know. And if they do know, then it's like scary. It's like, we're used to the familiar. People many times have like a fear for the unfamiliar. They can be like very miserable or unhappy in their current situations. But at least they will know what tomorrow will bring. And if like what if they start doing all these new things? They don't know how that's gonna unfold. So for a lot of people, that's also a scary proposition. Yet again, it takes a degree of courage, a degree of
Right.
willingness to even explore it.
Because that's definitely a coping mechanism, is the victim mentality, which we've been raised with since we were little. Like, oh, just blame everything outside of yourself, because that way you don't have to be responsible or create anything. So you could take every situation and I don't know. I would say don't get down on yourself once you start noticing if you do that. Because, for instance, with my job I was talking about, I could have looked at it like the typical person who would say, I don't get paid enough. They just don't respect me around here. Or I can't believe they would ever ask me to drive this far. So it's always projecting outside and, oh, I'm still going to go there, but man, this job is horrible. And so that's the victim. It's so subtle. But if you're putting any of that outside of yourself, you are saying that someone outside of yourself is making your life hard. And so then you have to take the choice, make a choice. And like I did, and it was not easy. Like, I wrote a letter about asking for a raise, even as aware as I have become. And I had a lot of stuff come up. Just, who do you think you are? In my own head, who do you think you are? Asking for more money from, a position that just doesn't get that kind of money. And you just have to say, no more. No, I'm either going to choose to stay here and do it the way I want to do it, or I'm going to walk away from it. But I'm definitely not going to be a victim to it and blame outside things any longer. And that takes courage. That's completely different than what the majority of society is walking through.
And it takes a lot of self-love. And
Mm-hmm.
love is not something that we are raised with.
Yeah.
We're not taught how to do it. So maybe that's why it takes courage to truly love
Yeah.
yourself. So, yeah.
It's amazing. Any of us on this path, I think, I hope you are loving yourself enough and realizing what a courageous angel you are, because, yeah, this is not for the weak. Like, this is for someone really owning every part of their life and willing to look at every part of their life with a light of awareness as to why you're choosing what you're choosing and how you want to choose differently, and have fun with creating new, creating what you really want.
Well, beautiful. And I think we're approaching the one hour mark. So I'd just like to remind all the listeners and all the viewers that if you have any questions, or you would like to share something, or you have certain topics that you would like us to talk about, You can reach us at FreedomSessions at Soulstories.tv. So you can just send us like an email, and then we'll see. Maybe we'll address it in one of the next shows. And yeah, I would like to thank you very much, Kim and Tash,
Hmm.
for sharing your perspective and your energy and your wisdom. I would like to thank all the listeners for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.